Good morning. Before we begin, we want to let you know that this citizens forum to discuss the proposed sewer assessment ordinance is being recorded and aired live on Channel 18 and the Town of Barnstable's Facebook page. It will be available on video on demand. My name is Lynn Poyant, and I am the Director of Communications for the Town of Barnstable. We want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to attend this session. Today's agenda: Town Manager Mark Ells will provide an introduction to the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan. This is more commonly known as the CWMP. Mark Milne, our Finance Director, will provide an overview of the draft sewer assessment ordinance. DPW Director Dan Santos is on hand to answer any technical questions that you may have. We ask that you use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen to type any questions or comments at any time during this program. At the end of presentations, we will answer as many questions as time allows. By using the Q&A feature, we are able to capture all of your questions and comments so that we can address those that we may not have time to get to today in the future. For more information, we encourage you to visit barnstablewaterresources.com website. You can sign up for regular email e-news and updates. You can also email questions to waterresources@town.barnstable.ma.us. Our next citizen forums are this afternoon at 2 and this evening at 7, as well as on March 25th at 10 a.m., 2 p.m., and 7 p.m. At this time, I am turning the program over to our Town Manager, Mark Ells.
Good morning and welcome. As introduced, I'm Barnstable Town Manager Mark Ells, and I want to thank you for taking the time to participate in this important effort by our community. Here with me, as previously introduced, Mark Milne, Director of Finance, who will co-present, and Director Santos from our Public Works Department. Over the next 20 minutes, Mark Milne and I will provide a summary of our comprehensive wastewater management plan and the proposed fiscal policy associated with it, specifically relevant to a proposed sewer assessment ordinance. It's important that we hear from you on this plan, but specifically relative to our proposed sewer assessment ordinance that Mark will present in a few moments. I'll move into the slides that we've made available to our public. In all that we do in the town of Barnstable, our mission and purpose is focused through our town council mission statement, and that is to protect the town of Barnstable's quality of life and unique character, engage our citizens, and enact policies that respond and anticipate to the needs of our community. Perhaps no other feature is more important to the quality of life and unique character of our community than the health of our coastal waters, freshwater ponds, and drinking water. We all benefit from our water resources being protected and preserved. And our town's comprehensive wastewater management plan is one tool used to protect our water resources. I'll pause for a moment, and I'm sure you know what this map represents. It's a picture of our town of Barnstable. And when you look to the north and south, you can see that we're bordered by 2 bays, and Cape Cod Bay and Nantucket Sound. On our east is Yarmouth. On our west is Sandwich and Mashpee. The heavy blue lines represent what we'll be discussing and have been discussing with our community relevant to coastal recharge areas. And we have 5 major embayment systems in the town of Barnstable. On our north, we have Barnstable Harbor and the Great Marsh. Fortunately, much of what we will discuss is not a challenge for us, though we have gone through the scientific and technical processes of evaluating our harbor, and it is an equal priority to all of our embayments to make sure that we maintain the environmental integrity of that asset, that water resource. And Barnstable Harbor is not just Barnstable. It's bordered on the west by Sandwich and on the east by Yarmouth. But when we move to the south side and going from left to right or west to east, we have Pompanesett Shoestring Bay, and we share that watershed with Mashpee and Sandwich. We have what's referred to as the three bays, which is North Bay and West Bay and Catuit Bay. And we share that again with Mashpee and Sandwich. In the middle of our community is Centerville River East Bay. And on the far east or right side is Lewis Bay, which we share with the town of Yarmouth. All of these southerly embayments are challenged by nutrient load, and I'll get into that a little more specifically in a minute. And that's what much of our focus has been on in our comprehensive wastewater management plan. I also show you where the Hyannis Water Pollution Control Facility is, the treatment plant. It's the green triangle over on the right. And I show you those tan areas. Those are zones of contribution to public drinking water, either in place or planned potentially for the future. And when you take out the Great Marsh, you can see that we live on top of half of our drinking water supply. So everything that we do can potentially impact that underlying resource, that water resource. So we can move to the next slide at this point. Barnstable's coastal estuaries and freshwater ponds have been severely degraded due to nutrient loads from primarily Title V systems. Those are those on-site septic systems that many of us still have in our backyards here in Barnstable and across the Cape. Title V systems do not effectively remove nutrients. The nutrients, in the case of saltwater, specifically nitrogen, the nutrients threaten our environment, property values, the economy here on Cape, and that quality of life that we began this presentation speaking about. We've posed a fundamental question to our Board of Health, and it is not the focus of today's presentation, but it is an ongoing discussion in our community that merits me including in this presentation. And it is, on which properties is a traditional Title V on-site wastewater system an adequate means of providing for the town's sanitation and environmental protections, and on which properties is it not? Because whether you're proposed for sewers or some other innovative future option that will help us achieve what I'm going to describe in a minute, Title V systems don't get us there. So it is a discussion that we need to have and continue to have. Why are we doing this? Federal law, the Clean Water Act, requires communities to meet water quality standards in coastal waters and in some freshwater bodies. I've described to you the different embayment systems, and I've told you that the 4 along the south side, actually the majority along the south side of Cape Cod, but certainly the 4 in our community, exceed their total maximum daily loads of nitrogen. So what does that mean? It means that if we fail to act, we'll continue to see deterioration of water quality. It means that we could receive a court order or some other regulatory enforcement relevant to us not meeting those total maximum daily loads. And we know that traditional Title V systems do not remove the nutrient loads necessary to meet these TMDL standards. And it's important to note, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, it is our urine that is the primary source of nitrogen in wastewater. Yes, there's fertilizer and atmospheric nitrogen and other sources from road runoff, but we are the primary source of this nitrogen load that is entering our environment that we live on top of, are impacting our water resources that we live on top of. And the majority of us have Title V systems, and they do not adequately remove nitrogen. Since 2016, the town staff, led by our Department of Public Works, has been meeting with our citizenry on the development of our comprehensive wastewater management plan. And as noted earlier by Lynn Poyad, it's typically referred to as a CWMP, but it's a comprehensive wastewater management plan. And this is a regulatory required comprehensive plan. And it begins with a needs assessment. It looks at identifying water quality requirements. It moves into an alternatives analysis, both traditional and non-traditional, looking at both sewers and wastewater treatment, similar to what we see in Hyannis and Barnstable Village, and then non-traditional, everything from dredging to aquaculture to fertilization management and plans, and then looking at innovative systems, whether they be on sites, more than Title V, whether they be other innovative approaches. All of those are included in the plan that we're moving forward with. And without all of them, we will not be able to achieve what we need to in our community. We also look at management issues. We're going to need to look at zoning, open space, health regulations, et cetera. And I've shared one of those specific health regulations that is under discussion now. And I encourage you all to watch those discussions. Director Santos from our Public Works Department is leading that effort with our health, Board of Health. This requires regulatory review and approval. And we have moved through that process with significant approvals at this point, including receiving state approval for our CWMP. We are in the final stages of that regulatory review and approval, and it is for consistency with the 208 plan, and that's a review that our Cape Cod Commission is doing. We expect to proceed with this. This approved plan in the near future. This plan recommends capital improvements. So it's going to lay out for the next 30 years where we will dredge, where we will sewer, the types of expansions that we anticipate relevant to wastewater treatment and discharge. And we all know that 30 years is a long time. And I'll discuss that in the next slide. But it lays out our capital improvement plan. If you follow our budgetary process, annually, we ask our town council to support us with capital improvement projects in any given fiscal year. In a planning mode, we plan for 5-year increments of capital. From a regulatory standpoint, we would be looking at a minimum of 20 or more years for a comprehensive wastewater management plan. And that's what we've shown in this comprehensive wastewater management plan. And then finally, to implement what we're recommending, we go to our town council and ask for authorization. The CWMP has already received that from our council. But I'm talking at this point about capital improvement projects, asking for money. All of those go to our council. All of them require public hearings, presentation, and authorization. I'll go back to this 5-year, 30-year discussion that I had a second ago. This plan needs to be adaptive and able to change. And therefore, we have had this, we have led in-house the development of this plan. We haven't handed it off to a consultant, though we do use consultants in many areas, especially where they have expertise in specific types of technology or support that we would need to move forward. We need to be able to adapt to change, technological change, regulatory change, financial change, and the changes in our community. All of us know, if we've been here a while, think back 10 to 12 months, but think back 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Barnstable is different. Cape Cod is different. We need to be able to have an adaptive plan, and therefore we are reviewing this plan in 5-year increments to allow for that adaptation. We are doing it led by our in-house staff so that we can control the future, the outcomes, and make sure it reflects what our community needs. We've proceeded with both traditional and non-traditional projects in our comprehensive wastewater management plan. And to date, we have proceeded with aspects of the CWMP and have received approvals in funding from our town council for approximately $30 million. So we are engaged in this plan right now. I want to revisit the benefits of this plan. All property owners in town benefit from the quality of life and economic advantages provided by pristine beaches, ponds, and drinking water. Every property owner should contribute to the cost of infrastructure needed to safeguard these resources, even if not connected to the sewer. And I know that that will be a big discussion item moving forward. So what are we doing? And the rest of the presentation is going to focus on what I'm going to explain right now. I've already explained that we've developed this plan and been discussing it publicly since 2016 and received regulatory approval for this plan. We're focused on fiscal policy that's under review by our town council right now. Back on October 29, 2020, we had a discussion of a proposed fiscal policy consideration in support of moving forward with this CWMP. We brought fiscal policy issues, proposed fiscal policy issues, to our town council for consideration. And we have had many subsequent discussions with our council and with our public. The fiscal policy under consideration would establish how to equitably distribute the cost of the CWMP. Now, in the previous slide, I told you that we are broadly looking at this and know that some portion of this should be shared by our entire community. That is yet to be determined. The town has established significant revenue sources in the last decade to offset more than half, approximately 57%, more than half of the estimated costs of this CWMP. So the policy that's under discussion is how to pay for the remaining costs. In trying to frame this fiscal policy, as town manager, I have put forward a proposal to town council that includes the following 2 major steps. And we're going to focus today, and the subsequent description by Director Milne will focus on the first step. The first step is to review and approve a proposed sewer assessment ordinance, which includes a sewer assessment to each property receiving the planned sewer. Second, a discussion of the use of general funds to pay for the remaining portion of the costs associated with proceeding with the CWMP. And that will be a following discussion, depending on how we move forward with this first discussion of a proposed sewer assessment ordinance. There are also other funding sources that could be discussed as we move forward, but speculative That's why this needs to be adaptive, because speculation of other outside funding sources that may materialize if something happens doesn't allow us to move forward with implementation of this plan. We need to have real fiscal policy that allows us to manage this as we move forward. And it is our belief that we will not be allowed to sit idly and wait for such policy to be established for the regulatory and legal reasons that I stated earlier in this overview. So again, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Director Milne and ask him to review the proposed sewer assessment ordinance. And thank you for viewing my overview. I appreciate it.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mark Milne, Director of Finance for the town of Barnstable. Glad you could all join us this morning to participate in this important discussion for our community. And as Town Manager Els mentioned, we have been working for about the past 10 years now in developing some financial resources to fund this plan. And to date, this is what we've done. We've dedicated 1/3 of our room occupancy tax on traditional lodging to this program. We have dedicated all of our room occupancy tax on short-term rentals for this program. We're dedicated all of our local meals tax collected to this program. A new 2.75% excise tax that applies to all types of lodging on Cape Cod, creating the Cape Cod and Islands Water Protection Fund has been established. And that is starting to build surpluses, and we'll be distributing money from that fund in the near future. And we do expect to be able to use some user rate revenue from the new connections that will be developed as new properties come online to the public sewer system. So what are we going to do for financing the remainder of the plan? We have two choices really, and that is to assess sewer assessments to properties that will be connected to the public sewer system, as well as any possible general fund contribution that may be needed after we determine what that sewer assessment amount is. Again, as Town Manager Els commented, we're trying to develop an equitable plan that shares this remaining costs that we need to cover through these additional funding sources. And these options are going to have very different implications for our residents and potentially for all property owners if a general fund contribution is necessary. But we won't know what that general fund contribution is until we've determined what any sewer assessment through the development of a sewer assessment ordinance is finalized. So what's the purpose of the sewer assessment ordinance? It's to assess all properties receiving benefit or an advantage from the public sewage system within the limited and determinable area as set forth in our comprehensive wastewater management plan, which was approved by the town council back in November 2019. What's the justification for a sewer assessment? Well, these properties do gain advantages of being tied into a public sewer system. Recent studies that we found that we can make available, that we will make available on our website are, we can expect an increase in market value for homes that are tied into a public sewer system, as well as the marketability of that property. This provides those properties a permanent solution and never having to need to replace a on-site system again. It also provides these property owners with increased reliability, and the roadways in front of these properties will be improved. So how are we required to apportion the cost of this program out to the affected property owners if we're going to issue sewer assessments? We must break the costs down by law in between general benefit facilities and special benefit facilities. General benefit facilities are improvements such as pumping stations, trunk mains, force mains, acquisitions of land or interest in land, which provide a benefit or an advantage to an area that exceeds that served by a special benefit facility. Or a special benefit facility is the sewer main to which a lateral line from an individual property that abuts the sewer can connect. And of course, also any interest in land or land purchases or pumping stations that specifically are necessary for that area. So here's an example of the difference between a general benefit facility and a special benefit facility. The purple line that you see that runs down Craigville Beach Road and takes a left up Strawberry Hill Road is a trunk main that we plan to construct. And there is a pump station here where this yellow dot is at the corner of those two roads. Those assets or infrastructure will serve all, not only the property butters along that purple line, but also the properties in the adjoining neighborhoods that are represented in this pink area that will have sewer mains, which are represented by these green lines that ultimately tie into that trunk line. So as the wastewater flows from all these outlying neighborhoods into that main trunk line, we are required to allocate the cost of that general benefit facility to all property owners. The special benefit facilities, which are represented again by these green lines in these adjoining neighborhoods, are only allocated, those costs are only allocated to the direct property abutters. So here's an example of a calculation as to how this works. So let's say we construct that main trunk line and a pump station for $10 million that ultimately will serve 1,000 dwelling units. The cost allocated to each dwelling unit, therefore, is $10,000. And then we build a sewer main that ties into that general benefit facility at a cost of $1.5 million that will serve directly 100 dwelling units. The cost per dwelling unit of that special benefit facility is $15,000. And then we have to add to those 100 units the cost of the general benefit facility for a total cost of $25,000 that would have to be allocated to those 100 dwelling units. So the proposed sewer assessment, we can either allocate 100% of the cost to the benefited properties or a lesser percentage, or we can fix it as at a dollar amount. And this will only apply to properties that are connected to the public sewer system. The proposal currently sits at capping that at $17,000 per sewer unit, but it could be less based on individual neighborhood project costs. So for example, the property butters that live along those main trunk lines could see a smaller assessment than $17,000 because the cost of that infrastructure is allocated out to a greater number of properties. This is a one-time charge assessed at the time the property has the ability to tie into the public sewer system. So how do we determine a sewer unit for a residential property? First, we look at the definition of a dwelling unit, which is one or more rooms, providing complete living facilities for a family, including equipment for cooking, provisions for the same, and including rooms or rooms for living, sleeping, and eating. A residential lot that contains one dwelling unit will equal one sewer unit. So therefore, single family dwelling equals one sewer unit, two family dwelling, two sewer units, and so on. What we're considering right now for a sewer unit for commercial and industrial properties, which in the draft ordinance is currently left blank on purpose because this was still under development, but what we're considering is basing it upon the estimated sewage volume of a Title V system under the State Environmental Code that requires us to design a system for sewage flow under their sewage flow design criteria. And that is 330 gallons per day equals one sewer unit. So that would be one commercial sewer unit if the flow on a daily basis was 330 gallons per day. If it was 660 gallons per day or more, for example, it could be two commercial sewer units. So what's our basis for the $17,000 cap on the assessment? Initially, our thoughts are we're trying to keep it affordable for the affected property owners. That cost amortized over 30 years provides more affordability as it represents about $2.67 per day. And we recognize that the property owner is also going to incur additional costs to connect their property to the sewer main. These property owners also gain the advantage of not having to eventually replace a Title V system, possibly with a nitrogen removing system, which currently averages the cost of about $28,000. This amount also represents about a 75% subsidy on the average estimated cost per parcel for the entire plan. And it represents about 4% of the median residential property value in town currently. And again, studies have shown that the increased market value, there's a real potential of increased market value and marketability by being tied into a public sewer system. So what kind of assistance and financial relief can the town provide to the property owners? Well, the sewer assessments can be apportioned over 30 years and added to the quarterly tax bill. So there's no upfront payment that has to be made by an affected property owner. There's a similar program that the county runs for septic system replacements. I believe that program allows affected homeowners to amortize that cost over a 20-year period at a 5% interest rate. This will allow, our plan will allow homeowners to amortize that cost over a 30-year period. And with the property owner's permission, the town can manage the connection work to add the cost and add that cost to the sewer assessment, allowing that to be amortized over a 30-year period. This would relieve the homeowner of having to hire a contractor on their own and finance that cost up front. We can also apply a low interest rate to that assessment. Again, the county, I believe, is at 5% right now. We can charge 5% to the homeowners, and quite possibly we can do better than that. If our proposal is to add 2% above the town's borrowing rate currently, and our last bond issue, we issued a 15-year bond at 1.2%. That would equate to a 3.2% interest rate on the assessment. And we don't have to perform a credit check on property owners if they choose to apportion the cost over 30 years futures tax bills. So here's an example of what assessments could look like. Using a $17,000 sewer assessment with varying connection costs, because again, the connection cost is going to be different for each property based on its the building's distance from the street, any obstructions on the property, where their current sewer infrastructure exits the house. And so the connection costs will be different. So this illustration shows any connection cost between $1,000 to $10,000, resulting in a total assessment of $18,000 to $27,000, equaling a quarterly payment of $258 up to $387, or $2.83 a day up to $4.25 a day. So what's next? We're going to continue the public discussion on this draft sewer ordinance, taking the feedback that we receive. We can make this a better document with everyone's participation. We plan to bring a final proposed ordinance to the town council in April. We're going to continue to evaluate and have a public discussion on what form any general fund contribution should be in the form of. And we have a Strawberry Hill Road sewer project extension project that's beginning to start in the fall of 2021. So at this time, we will take questions and comments on this presentation. Again, Barnstable Water Resources website is a good place to go to get more information and sign up for regular email news and updates. You can email your questions to waterresources@town.barnstable.ma.us. As Lynn Poyant mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we'll be doing this again today at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m., as well as again on March 25th at 3 times again, 10 a.m., 2 p.m., and 7 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Milne. We do have questions that have come up through the question and answer feature. The first is from Ken Malloy. Papaneset Bay shoestring does not seem to be included. Are funds included to join with Mashpee for work needed there? I'm not sure who the appropriate person to answer that question is.
I'll try to answer that. Thank you for the question, Mr. Malloy. Yes, Papaneset Shoestring Bay is considered in the comprehensive wastewater management plan. And we are in a relationship through a memorandum of agreement with Mashpee and Sandwich relevant to that coastal recharge area. And part of that agreement, more than happy to share it. It's a public document. And the discussion that you're asking about is included in that agreement. You're asking, is funding included for this? I'm not sure that anybody has identified what Mashpee is asking Barnstable to participate in, but as soon as we hear, we have a collective discussion with Mashpee and Mashpee and Yarmouth, I'm sorry, Mashpee and Sandwich, we would certainly begin reviewing whatever that proposal is. That's the agreement that we have. And we're looking to have similar agreements for Three Bays and for Lewis Bay with Yarmouth.
Thank you. The next question, also from Mr. Malloy, is: are the capital improvements mentioned beyond the CWMP funding?
Capital improvements beyond the CWMP funding. I'm not clear on. We do a capital improvement program townwide that includes all of our assets and what we need to do to maintain those assets in a functional manner. And that is done. It's done in a separate document in our budget. In our annual budgeting, as I described earlier in the presentation, we do those in 5-year increments, and then we ask for approval on an annual basis. Outside of that, we also do capital planning efforts with master plans, whether it be for dredging or roadway work or facilities that we have, buildings that we have. So certainly we are looking at not just our comprehensive wastewater management plan, because it is not the only feature in our capital planning for the community of Barnstable, nor is it our only priority. We have many facilities, schools and municipal buildings and other facilities, marinas and beaches, etc., that are, again, critical to that quality of life in Barnstable. So yes, there is other capital planning ongoing. It is concurrent, and there are also other comprehensive capital plans for other assets that we have. And what Director Milne and myself and Assistant Town Manager Clyburn do is collectively look at that and formulate an annual capital plan to bring forward to our town council that is in coordination with our town council's mission statement and the priorities that our community through our town council brings to us, so that we can make sure that where we are spending resources is the priority of our community. I hope that answers that question.
Thank you. An anonymous attendee has asked, given the low cost of borrowing at this time, would not a large bond issue be in the town's interest?
Let Mark take that one.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Certainly, with today's borrowing environment, we could gain an advantage in our capital spending or capital borrowing to fund projects, whether it be this program or any other capital programs that the town manager mentioned. And the best time to do that, obviously, is when interest rates are low. But we also are faced with increased construction cost at this period of time as well. So they kind of balance each other out, but it's certainly, you want to take advantage of financial markets and the low interest rates when you can. We do have some limitations, however, as far as the size of a bond issue and really, it's really more importantly, so how quickly we need to spend it. If we were to do a large bond issue, we are subject to what it's called federal arbitrage rules, which require us really to spend that money down within a 24-month period. So if we were to issue a $150 million bond tomorrow, that's a lot of spending over the next 24-month period. And there would be a lot of streets that are opened up and torn apart.
Mark, could you address our use of the one of our primary sources of funding and subsidization with the with the state revolving fund?
Yes, thank you, Mark, for that question. So yes, the Mass Clean Water Trust does offer the town also an additional low borrowing option through that program. Being a housing choice community, we are eligible for loans through the Mass Clean Water Trust at 1.5%. Their normal standard borrowing rate is 2%. And projects associated with removing nitrogen from the estuaries are also eligible for as much as a 0% borrowing rate. as well as principal subsidies from that source. And the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund is another program that will offer us principal subsidies on loans allowing us to borrow less for a project, the need to borrow less for a project because they're subsidizing a portion of the principal. So there is that option that we take advantage of first due to those low rates. Sometimes, like this most recent borrowing issue we did, which was a 15-year borrowing, it was very competitive day in the market, and we did very well. We're not always going to be able to beat the Mass Clean Water Trust. And the Mass Clean Water Trust will not always have enough funding to provide us every single borrowing that we need to do. And we will be required to go to the municipal bond market on occasion to borrow funds for our capital program as well.
Thank you, Mr. Milne. We have a comment from TK Burgess. Thank you, Mr. Els, for an excellent presentation. We have another question from Ken Malloy. Must a dwelling be in when sewage pipe goes past the lot? Must a dwelling be in when the sewage pipe goes past the lot?
So if there's a vacant piece of property that has the potential to be developed under our existing zoning, there will be an assessment to that vacant lot. That assessment can be delayed for a period of time until that property is developed, but that would have to be established and included in part of the ordinance as to what that time frame would be. It may not be indefinite because with the potential of that lot being developed, it should share in the cost of the program and should receive an assessment as developed properties do.
Okay, it was just pointed to my attention, tie-in, and that, sorry about my eyes. The question was tie-in. So the next question we have here, we have another comment. C. Hurwitz says, excellent presentation. Well researched. You've answered all of my questions so far. A question from Andrew Witter. How will the assessment be apportioned to residential condominiums?
Thank you for the question. That is one area that we're still looking at, and we will provide an update to the ordinance to address that specific matter. We don't have the answer to that one yet.
Thank you. Next, we have a question from Mitzi. I thought the Finney's Lane and roads off of that were to be in the first part of the project to protect the lake.
They are. It's actually the first sewer line going in the ground. This would be Finney's Lane to Strawberry Hill Road, and we anticipated commencing in the fall of 21.
Thank you.
The abutting neighborhoods, though, will be subsequent projects. And what we will do, that's an excellent question. I think a lot of our residents throughout phase one sewering, which is what we are looking to do in the first 10 years, will want to know, when are you coming to my neighborhood? And we are in the process of putting on our website the ability for you to see, okay, when might my property going to be sewered in the future? Is it planned to be sewered? And then we'll work with our Department of Public Works to share the details of that, like when might that occur?
And that actually is live on the property lookup part of the town's website currently. People can research their, and actually, if I might, I'm just going to share the screen for a moment. So can you see here, when we look up a property, this is 585 Main Street in Centerville. It's the Centerville Public Library. It says town sewer at address, no, CWMP sewer expansion, phase 2 in the 11 to 20 year process. It's subject to change with final engineering design, but that will give people an estimate of when their property may be in the CWMP plan. Next question comes from Bob Schulte. Will properties that have ADUs, 2-family dwelling units, be assessed 2 sewer unit charges? Thank you.
I can take that question. Thank you for your question, Mr. Schulte. Yes, under this current definition, it would result in an additional sewer assessment as a result of having a separate dwelling unit on the property.
Thank you. Next is our question from Butch. Have you considered a percentage of the property value, as this might be a more progressive tax rather than a set fee?
We are not allowed to issue sewer assessments as a percentage of the property value. The only way we can do it is based on a percentage of the cost, whether it's 100%, 75%, 50%, or a fixed dollar amount. But we can't have a sliding scale dollar amount for every property in town based on the property's value. It's not allowed.
Thank you. Dom Gautreau asks, are the numbers outlined net of Vineyard Wind's contributions, or could there be more coming from those phases?
I'll try to answer that, I guess. Though much of that, especially phases 2 and beyond, are speculative at this point, relevant to Vineyard Wind. The only project that contemplates a construction savings relevant to Vineyard Wind doing the earthwork within roadways, meaning doing the digging within roadways, therefore having the road open and saving us that cost, and then ultimately repairing it and repaving it, would be at this point the Strawberry Hill and Spinney's Lane route. It is contemplated that if Vineyard Wind does subsequent phases, that we would work similarly to avoid those construction costs, therefore try to keep down the cost to our residents. Again, remember, these are not fixed 30-year costs in the sense that they are estimates based on a plan. That's why our adaptive approach to revisit all aspects, as I've outlined earlier in my presentation, technical, regulatory, financial, our community, to review all aspects and then adapt our program as we progress, has been embedded in this 5-year increment. Quite honestly, if we find another opportunity, we'll revisit it immediately. We are trying to be flexible and adaptive because we know what we're asking our community to embark on. We also know that we don't have any choice but to embark on it. And we're trying to find the most equitable way to proceed with our residents. So yes, we're contemplating Vineyard Wind and the potential work they're doing. The best, most specific example is the work that will commence this spring, but we'll see the utility sewer installation fall of 21 if all progresses as they're scheduling. And yes, we will see an avoidance of cost of construction as a result of that.
Thank you. I apologize in advance if I mispronounce your name. This next question is from Pete Prigocki. Does the CWMP also include removing the nutrient load from the bays, e.g. Dredging, to improve the existing bay integrity?
The dredging.
Go ahead, Mark.
I know Dan's out there. Dan, why don't you join? Good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
What I wanted to say was the point of the plan is to remove nitrogen from the bays and the embayments. There's no specific part of the plan that calls for dredging or activities within the bays to do that. However, we do have a robust dredging plan and program in town, and there is some benefit from dredging to the nutrient loading in the bayments currently, but it's our comprehensive wastewater management plan and the projects within that are really going to remove the nitrogen from the groundwater and keep it from entering the bays. And ultimately, the bays will flush out because there'll be much less load of nitrogens entering those bays.
Thank you. Next, we have a comment from Tom Cambereri. Thank you for a clear and straightforward presentation on this extensive effort and plans moving forward. Our next question comes from Larry Hurwitz. As part of this program, is there going to be a regional wastewater treatment plant at Joint Base Cape Cod?
Dan and my assistant Clyburn have both been hands-on involved. Yes, we are looking at that option, but that option is still speculative. So again, as we gain access to different and hopefully better ways to address these concerns in our community, we will adapt our plan to reflect that opportunity. So yes, we have pursued it. We've taken a very formal and aggressive role in this. But on the other hand, at this point, it's still speculative. So to go back to 2 questions ago, and Director Santos did a nice job in addressing the dredging, but it's important that our community know that not unlike speculative sources of funding, like grants from the federal government that we don't have yet, we need to have concrete recommended solutions to show the regulators and to show those that are actually formally out there legally challenging some aspects of this, to show that we can become compliant within a stated time period with those TMDLs. And if we can't, and for example, the regulators decide to take action relevant to it, we could lose control of this process, regardless of the finances or the financial equitability. Quantifying things like fertilizer load, dredging, can be proved out after the implementation, but at this point, the regulators are very reluctant to credit us up front with that sort of action until we prove the results, not unlike innovative on-site systems. And we are working actively in our community to bring that into a very positive opportunity in our community with the regulators, so that we know that going over the 30 years, it's going to be much more difficult to achieve what we want to achieve if we can't have partners out there that are bringing forward these innovative on-sites to assist. So, the answer to that question is yes, any and all dredging, absolutely, but it's speculative in the fact that we don't get to quantify it and have the regulators give us credit for it. And we're at a point where we need an implementation plan that shows them how we can, with approved methods, address this problem.
Thank you. An anonymous attendee asks, will neighborhood sewer design plans be available for review?
Dan, why don't you review the review process with us, please?
Yes, thank you. We have proposed that for all of our projects, as soon as we have a conceptual design or preliminary design, that we will share that with the community, in particular, the neighborhood residents, when we're in a neighborhood, to provide what we're proposing, or if there's alternatives, what those alternatives might be, and to get feedback. So the simple answer to the question is yes, the residents will absolutely have the ability to review design plans.
And might I add to that, having had the benefit of experience similar to what Dan does for us now. This is our residents' front yard, and we do not take that lightly. And we've learned that engaging our residents hands-on from planning right through implementation is critical, because their life goes on whether we're doing work in front of their house or not. And so I know that Director Santos carries that same attention and concern. If we're not doing it, I want to hear from you, but I know that he is doing it. And we are going to be sensitive to communications during design, and absolutely working hands-on with our residents during construction, so you know exactly what's happening, when it's happening, how it impacts you, your life, your visit in the summer, if you're here then, your kid's bus stop, whatever it might be, okay? We are here to serve you, and we are going to include that as an integral part of our construction planning going forward. And through Director Santos and Poyan in communications, we're going to develop even better tools so our residents can know way to access and get answers easily. So thank you. And if that's not happening, I would like you to reach out to me directly. Thank you.
Following up on that question, we have another anonymous attendee asking, is there any opportunity to locate collection lines in backyards, since the majority of septic systems are located in backyards?
I'll take that. No, we won't be installing collection lines in backyards, because they'll be in the streets. That's the plan. And it's much more difficult to try to put collection systems completely on private property and in backyards. So we will make a connection from the street to the home, and that could be in the front or backyard, depending on where their septic system is, where their home's wastewater system is relative to the basement and inside the home. But the plan is to have them be in the roads themselves.
Thank you. Peter Pragaki asks, will Katua residents have to pay additional assessments for connections to Sandwich Mashpee, or are they covered with the $17,000 assessment?
I would answer that the sewer assessment ordinance will stand for sewering within the community until such time. The town council is the approving authority of it. And we've described to you that we will adapt all aspects of our planning, including fiscal, as we move through this. So our entire community is subject to the sewer assessment ordinance, subject to change given changing conditions. The connection potentially in Katuitt is shown on our plans in a different color. It's not phase 1, 2, or 3. And if and when the option to connect those areas to some other facility, most frequent discussion, or most recent discussion has been to Joint Base Cape Cod. But there could be other discussions. It was brought up by Ken Malloy earlier, relevant to working with Mashpee. We would absolutely entertain all of those discussions. If it impacts us in a way that merits us adapting a sewer assessment ordinance, we would bring discussions back before our town council and our community regarding that. And that's what we're trying to achieve with what we're doing. A static 30-year plan, in our opinion, isn't good enough. This needs to be adaptive in all areas, and it needs to remain equitable and certainly affordable to the degree that, to the degree that that one's achievable. It needs to remain equitable and affordable to the people who live here. So I hope that answers that question.
We have a couple of questions that are related to Vineyard Wind, so I'm going to try to combine them. They're from Joan Richards and Larry Hurwitz. Will the timing of the construction of the sewer line be in conjunction with the laying of cable for Vineyard Wind project to avoid digging up the roads more often than necessary? And will Vineyard Wind and other projects be expected to make a financial contribution to the project?
Yes and yes. And it's already been established through a host agreement. Director Santos and his staff have been very active working with Vineyard Wind on their phase one. Please remember, future phases are speculative, but we do have agreements in place that that yes, it will be installed. So we only open up that road once, and yes, there are financial aspects of that installation that will help us to minimize costs to our residents.
Thank you. From David Cherbuck, do the financial projections factor in a potential increase in the town's tax base due to anticipated changes to the town's existing zoning regulations that could potentially permit high-density housing and high-rise development now prohibited by existing septic constraints?
Take that one. Yes, so the way this is designed is that if future development, if the sewer expansion program allows for rezoning and future development, providing additional opportunities to expand development, for example, on a property, the sewer assessment and the formula to determine the number of sewer units that property would be charged, it takes that into consideration.
If I might go further as well, just to share, well, that was an excellent question. Certainly, we know that providing infrastructure changes land use. And we know that on-site Title V systems, as well as availability of public water, dramatically impact development. And we are also, as I said earlier, this is not our only priority. This just is in the forefront of much discussion, meaning the comprehensive wastewater management plan. But we are embarking on an update to our local comprehensive plan. And we will be engaging in the coming months our community relevant to that. And as part of that, we will be looking at infrastructure within our community, either existing or planned. And I think we need to, beyond Mark's answer, begin to contemplate potential impacts and whether we can continue to maintain that quality of life that is at the forefront of all we do, as sewer infrastructure in this case expands into areas where it doesn't previously exist. So what I would ask our public to do is I have relevant to this sewer assessment ordinance. And our Lynn Poyon, our communications director, will make sure that we, through our water resources website, link you in so you don't have to try to find this. It'll be right there for you. You can always call or email, but we want to make it easy, as easy as we can. We ask you to engage as we move forward, and you'll be hearing more from our Director of Planning and Development, Elizabeth Jenkins, in the coming months about this. And I ask you to engage there, because not only will we address it from a technical and financial standpoint with infrastructure here, but when we begin to look at land use and zoning more broadly through our local comprehensive plan update, please engage there as actively. Thank you.
Mr. Ells, I think that you just answered this next question from Ken Malloy. He says education of the public is the key to a success. The webinar is a good start. Who is responsible for educating the public?
Well, as your town manager, I am one of those people. So I ask that, and I reach out to our active residents, our adults, certainly, our stakeholder groups, our youth. We very actively engaged our youth in this effort, because we're talking about a 30-year plan with 30-year debt. We're talking about 60 years here of impact. It's critical that our youth be engaged in these decisions that they will live with. They have certainly lived with the results of the challenges we have moving forward. So bring it to me. Certainly, Director Poyant is here with me from Communications and Education. Fortunately, as town manager, I have access to many resources here and beyond. Our school superintendent can't be more supportive of what we're doing in this area. And so certainly, if you see opportunities there through general public, through our other programmatic areas such as our senior center, let me know. But we are firing all barrels here moving forward, because without that, we will not have the plan that we deserve to have. So, Mr. Malloy, thank you for that question. But it falls to me.
Thank you. Larry Hurwitz asks, are there any federal funds available to offset some of the costs?
I'll take that question. Thank you. Thank you for that question. Currently, the federal funding available for a program like this is all directed to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the Commonwealth uses that federal funding to provide by providing it to the Mass Clean Water Trust, which then uses that federal funding to provide these low interest and subsidized loans to communities for infrastructure projects like that. So like this one. So that is the existing federal government program. Any expectation that direct grants to fund this program from the federal government is clearly speculative at this point. But that doesn't mean that we aren't making efforts to contact our legislative delegation to try to obtain such direct funding.
And to expand again, kind of under the hat that I just described to you on education, as town manager, I get to speak with a lot of people, including our federal delegation, and we are actively identifying the total cost of this. We are actively identifying the federal regulations that are applicable here, and we are identifying the economic importance and the natural resource importance of the town of Barnstable on Cape Cod for our country and for our state and for us. And yes, we are actively pursuing that. Discussion, quantified, most specifically looking at infrastructure packages that may be coming forward, whether it's water, wastewater, etc. And we will continue to do so. Once again, bringing us back to what we've built into this plan, which is an adaptive plan. If we find that something becomes available to us that could help us address, we're not going to sit unchanged and continue on with an effort. We are going to adapt our plan to reflect that opportunity, whether it be financial or otherwise. So, yes, we're active. Your help, many of you are active in many aspects of life. If you see an opportunity that you don't think, you don't know if we're taking advantage of, please let us know. Any of us. And if you don't know how to get us, then you can go right on, send us to general town email. And believe me, it gets to me. And I'll be more than happy to get back to you and look into whatever opportunities you may see that are available, and either and don't see us necessarily or don't know if we're pursuing it. Thank you.
Thank you. An anonymous attendee says, you mentioned that urine is the main contributor of nitrogen and that open land is important. Why do we not see efforts to leave open land, but instead see large housing plans and development taking away open land and adding more people and toilets?
That's a good question. There needs to be a balance here. And again, wastewater is not our only, or even nutrient loading to our coastal embayments is not our only priority. Housing is certainly a priority for us as well. And so it's all about balance. Everything we do is about balance. And we have not gone forward with housing developments in recent years that have had a detrimental impact on the down gradient receptors. And most of what's occurring is already on infrastructure. And much of what we would like to see occur isn't, and therefore it doesn't proceed. So I'm not suggesting that we're without challenge in this area, meaning balance, but we are conscious of it. And I can only tell you that housing and the continued need for housing is an equal priority to the protection of our resources. And our intent is not to sacrifice either. And, we'll do our best to achieve that, but it certainly isn't one dimensional. What we do is multidimensional, and I hope that our efforts going forward will reflect that.
Pete Pigrocki says, thank you for mentioning the CWMP will be reviewed and updated every 5 years. Can't move fast enough. Thank you. Mary asks, when are you distributing the homeowner sewer connection guidebook? Can we take a credit on our mass tasks for the connection fee on SC form?
I can try. I'll take the tax question. I don't know the answer to that. Now we don't provide tax advice to any residents. That's not our area of expertise, and everybody's individual situation can be different. And so I would advise any homeowner to contact their tax preparer in regards to any possible credit that they could take on their taxes.
I can
Go ahead, Dan.
address the other question about the sewer connection guidebook. I think it's a great idea, frankly, and we'll look into providing something like that to residents so they can understand what's entailed in getting connected to the sewer.
Thank you. Larry Hurwitz asks, when Vineyard Wind makes landfall at Covell's Beach, will the sewer infrastructure extend down Craigville Beach Road into Centerville also at that time?
Dan, you want to take this one?
Yes, the connection system of the sewer system for that's being put in conjunction with Vineyard Wind actually moves to the east along Craigville Beach Road to Strawberry Hill Road and north from there. It does not extend into Centerville through the other direction.
What about future phases, Dan?
Future phases will include the area along Long Beach Road in front of Craigville Beach and up into Centerville that way. And that's basically via the phase 2 Vineyard Wind plan.
If phase 2 never occurs with Vineyard Wind, Dan, is that still a future phase of our CWMP planned sewer expansion?
Yes, it is. The only reason to do it in conjunction with the Vineyard Wind is to save some money and some convenience for our residents.
Thank you. Mitzi asks, if the property is sold during the 30-year time, does costs go down to the new owner?
So, yeah, when a sewer assessment is levied on a property, a lien gets recorded at the Registry of Deeds. Then if the property is subsequently sold and there's still a lien on there because there's an outstanding balance due on the assessment, typically what happens is the seller of the property pays off the lien upon the sale of the property. But that's always negotiable between a buyer and a seller. But typically the mortgage companies want liens paid off upon the transfer of ownership.
Thank you. Larry Hurwitz asks, if an on-site septic system fails prior to sewer infrastructure installed, will the homeowner face repair costs and the sewer assessment?
Director Santos can get into the detailed discussions that we're having with the Board of Health. It is our hope, given the magnitude of what we're undertaking, both cost, technical impact on our community, that we have a well-coordinated effort with our health division and Board of Health. So specifically, if we're ready to go on projects, we're going to work with our Board of Health so minimal impact to our residents and duplication of effort by our residents doesn't occur. And I guess I'll stop there because there could be specific triggers as to what needs to be done to transfer a property at sale, for example. But I can assure you that we are in active discussions with our Board of Health, and Director Santos and our Health Division Director McKeon and Board of Health are active in these discussions. And it's the exact question that our chair of our Board of Health asked us. How do we not put our residents in the position that they upgrade a septic system and then the sewer comes and we ask them to spend X amount potentially through a sewer assessment or some other financial mechanism?
Thank you. Michelle asks, what will be the average homeowner's cost to hook up to the sewer lines brought down the street to their house?
Well, this proposal is for a sewer assessment of $17,000, not to exceed $17,000. Mark Milne described the general and special benefit project. In addition to that, there is a physical connection that needs to occur from the house to the pipe in the street. And in this ordinance, we've contemplated that. And it's up to the homeowner whether they want to undertake that and pay for it themselves, or they want to ask us to do it for them. If we do it for them, then we can include it in this spreading the cost over 30 years, if they choose up to 30 years. If they choose to do it themselves, then they fund it and they pay for it directly themselves. So you have the assessment at whatever it's set at. The town manager's proposal is $17,000. You have the physical connection, and Director Milne showed you a range of costs, but it's going to depend on, does it come out the front of your house or the back of the house? Is it coming out of a basement and significantly lower than the street, or is it at the same level as the street? There's a lot of issues that each property, we don't know the answer to those. And then ultimately, once you become a customer, there's a third charge. And the charge is the annual cost for a residential property, a usage charge that you pay for sewer. The average residential property in Barnstable pays about $400 a year for their sewer bill. And that's in addition to an assessment that can be spread over 30 years and whatever the connection cost is. So those are the costs that are associated. I'm not quite sure, based on the question, which part of that the person asking the question was referring to. So I tried to give the whole picture.
Thank you. Jay asks, as many roads in Barnstable are private, will trenching be limited to grassy or non-paved surfaces except when necessary? If not, will the repairs to the pavement be piecemeal? I ask as our association has recently resurfaced all of our roads at the owner's expense.
So our plan is to install the sewer in the roadway, both whether it's a public road or a private road, and to resurface the road when we're through installing the sewer. So we're not going to be putting patches.
Thank you. Larry Hurwitz has two questions here. Is a contingency be budgeted to avoid going back to taxpayers due to overruns? And approximately how many pump stations will be needed? Will residents be involved in the design process?
I'll let Dan take the pump station question. And we're not asking the general fund question right now. We are only discussing we will discuss the general fund piece of this, which I believe that first part of the question is referring to. But right now, we're discussing whether or not we will put in place a sewer assessment for properties that are being sewered. And it is something that will need town council approval. And we're making a recommendation of 17,000 a property, but in our presentations, we've actually given a range that can be looked at. Depending on what we do with that sewer assessment, then we move to the general fund piece of this discussion. And that's really when we'll get into that question. So I know it doesn't answer, it's a good question. But we're not ready to answer it because we don't have all the other. We know we've dealt with 57%. We've got 43% to figure out. Once we establish a sewer assessment, we'll have a smaller amount to figure out. And that's when we'll address that question. So please ask Mr. Hurwitz to hold and continue that question and discussion with us. There'll be more opportunities.
Thank you. Mr. Santos?
Sure. Regarding the pump stations, currently our plan includes approximately 80 pump stations in the program, and the residents will absolutely, as I mentioned earlier, be involved in the design process and reviewing what we're proposing and providing input and suggestions.
Thank you. The last question for this session is from an anonymous attendee. Not to be insensitive, but this is a 30-year plan, and some of us, myself included, probably will not be able to participate in 30 years. Do you have a succession plan to keep this on track?
Succession plan as far as will future management and the town be committed to it? I would have to say, given the regulatory nature of what we are embarking on, we will be held accountable to proceed with this plan. And if we do not, then it is my belief that action of some level will be taken. So yes, I believe that there is a succession plan in that it lays out 30 years. We'll be adapting it. It isn't something that we unilaterally adapt either. It's actually quite a effort on our staff's part and augmented with consulting support to be able to adapt. But I see no other way because reality is planning for 1 year is definitely measurable. 2 to 3 is pretty good. 5 speculative, beyond 5. Quite honestly, you're getting into a whole different area, and as far as being able to be accurate. So it needs to be adaptive. Our community needs to understand this. And, I do believe, look at our town council's strategic plan and look at their priorities and look at their commitment to this quality of life and engaging our community in what is our priorities. And that really will show you over time whether our community is committed to following through with this program. And based on our current leadership, they have been strong and clear on this issue, and it's reflected in their strategic plan, and we as staff will continue with it.
Thank you. We want to remind people that the town has a new website, barnstable.waterresources.com, that they can actually gain access to through the town's main website. There's a button right on the screen. You can also sign up for updates through our brand new Community Currents newsletter, which was actually just launched this morning. There's a news and updates section. You can email questions directly to waterresources@town.barnstable.ma.us. And the forum will be repeating this afternoon at 2 p.m. and this evening at 7 p.m. We anticipate different questions. The next citizen forums after that will be on March 25th at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. As well as 7 p.m. We want to thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Ellis, do you have anything that you'd like to share?
only that we truly appreciate you taking the time with us. Excellent questions. If you didn't get a chance to send a question or communicate, we've got more today, but today isn't the only day. Every day, please share with us. And as a result of that, we're going to incorporate what we hear into what's been proposed, bring it back before our council, the first meeting in April, and hopefully move forward with a decision on this. And from there, we will move into subsequent steps. Again, thank you for taking the time.